The Pitt County Board of Commissioners meeting will begin in 30 seconds. If you wish to speak during the public comments, please sign up at the podium in the hallway.
Good morning, and welcome to the Pitt County Board of Commissioners meeting. Those of you in the audience and those of you by way of social media. At this time, we shall have the roll call. I think all is present. And now we shall have the invocation and the pledge. Invocation by Commissioner Perkins-Williams and pledge by Commissioner White.
Please bow. Dear Lord, we bow in humble submission to you for your mercy and your grace. Bless us that we may do the will of the people. Grant that the country may grow well and safe in your arms. We welcome you to look forward to helping to heal the bodies of the residents in Pitt County. All these things I pray in your name. Amen.
Please face it wide. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we should have the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, there's a request from the sheriff to be added under items for discussion, if the board is amenable.
Great. Okay.
Where are we putting it?
Do not know. She could tell us. Question is, what is the subject?
I'm sorry?
What is the subject for
Where
the?
you want us to place this on the agenda?
Federal Fed bid.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Has been moved. The second?
Second.
Has been moved and properly second that we add this to the agenda. All in favor, let it be known by your vote.
Still not working. It's working on my screen, so if you will, I just need Mary's vote.
Want to raise your hand?
No, she got it.
It's working on here, and it is unanimous to add it to the agenda. Now you'll just need a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment.
I move that we approve the agenda with the amendment.
All in favor?
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by your vote again.
And I just need, there it goes. And that's unanimous.
Okay, very good. At this time, we should have presentation. Scott, if you want to.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have two presentations this morning. One is a resolution for Beth Fitch and the Deputy Register of Deeds, and a proclamation to recognize Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. If the board could approve both of these, and we'll go down front. The
Move
chairman,
approval.
myself.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
One, has been a second?
Second.
Okay, has been moved and properly second that we approve both resolutions. Let it be known by your vote, please.
There,
It looks like the monitors aren't on. If you'll
so
hit
just
the
Which
bottom
button?
on
On
the
the
right
bottom
side of
right.
your screen
Right
on the
here.
bottom. It's unanimous. Does anybody need help?
There, I think it just flat. I have no heat in my hands, so it wouldn't make sense.
We can ask Beth Fitch to come forward from the Register of Deeds. Hey, she's doing here with Thomas. Mr. Chairman, if you would like, I can
Yes,
proceed
sir.
to reading the resolution.
Please do.
This is a resolution honoring Beth R. Fitch, Deputy Register of Deeds, upon receiving certification by the North Carolina Association of Register of Deeds. It reads as follows: whereas Beth R. Fitch deserves to be congratulated by the Pitt County Board of Commissioners on her accomplishment of receiving her certification by the North Carolina Association of Register of Deeds. And whereas Beth R. Fitch has diligently pursued the advancement of her certification in all areas as a Deputy Register of Deeds. And whereas Beth Fitch has given her own personal time to prepare for in-depth examinations necessary to achieve certification in this area. And whereas Beth Fitch, by her recent attainment of certification in all Register of Deeds areas, has joined an elite group of deputy registrars who have been certified at this advanced level. Now therefore it be resolved that the Pitt County Board of Commissioners honors and recognizes the achievements of Beth R. Fitch for the achievement of the advanced level of certification in all areas as a Deputy Register of Deeds. This is adopted this third day of February 2020, signed by our Chairman, Melvin C. McLaughlin, and attested by our Clerk, Kimberly W. Hines. Mr. Chairman?
All right. Congratulations. Thank you for all you do. Anything you would like to say?
No.
Please turn
Thank
around
you.
and get a picture. Okay, next we have a proclamation, and I believe we have somebody here today.
Vanita Howard.
Brenda Howard?
Vanita Howard.
Vanita Howard, if you come forward, please. She's here to receive the proclamation on Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Mr. Chairman, if you would like, I can proceed.
Please do.
Whereas females between the ages of 16 to 24 are more vulnerable to initiate partner violence, experiencing abuse at a rate almost triple the national average. Whereas 1 in 3 adolescent girls in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse from a dating partner, this far exceeds victimization rates for other types of violence affecting youth. Whereas high school students who experience physical violence in a dating relationship are more likely to use drugs and alcohol, are at a greater risk of suicide, and are much more likely to carry patterns of abuse in future relationships. Whereas young people victimized by a dating partner are more likely to engage in risky sexual behavior and unhealthy dieting behaviors, disrupting normal development of self-esteem and body image. Whereas nearly half of teens who experience dating violence report the instance of abuse took place in a school building or on school grounds. Whereas only 33% of teens who are in an abusive relationship ever tell anyone about the abuse, and 81% of parents surveyed either believe teen dating violence is not an issue or they admit they do not know it is. And whereas by providing young people with education on healthy relationships and by changing attitudes that support violence, we recognize that dating violence can be prevented. Whereas it is essential to raise community awareness and provide training for teachers, counselors, and school staff so that they may recognize signs of dating violence. Now therefore be resolved, the Pitt County Board of Commissioners proclaim February 2020 as Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month in Pitt County, and urge the community to work toward ending teen dating violence by empowering young people to develop healthier relationships and assisting victims in assessing information. This is adopted again this third day of February 2020, signed by our Chairman, Melvin McLaughlin, and attested by Clerk Kimberly Hines. Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to say?
On behalf of Breaking the Silence, we would like to thank you all for proclaiming Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month.
Thank you very much.
Take a picture. Here, just hold that like that. There you go.
All right, now we should have public hearing, economic development project, and Kelly Andrews and Scott Darnell, if you would come.
Well, thank you for allowing me and Kelly. I'm Kelly today as well, I think. She did. One of us needed to come. This is a public hearing for Grover Gaming. They are a recipient of a building reuse and redevelopment grant from the North Carolina Department of Commerce. This grant provides funds for building rehabilitation, real property improvements based on jobs created. The county is the applicant. The county was awarded this by the North Carolina Department of Commerce. There is a 5% match. That match is handled in the Pitt County Development Commission's budget. And then until the terms of the grant are met, we have a deed of trust on the property for Grover Gaming. Legal's prepared that. That's already in place. So this public hearing is that process of formalizing this, allowing Grover Gaming to continue to grow in Pitt County and create 13 jobs according to the terms of the agreement, meet the grant, retire that, and move on and create jobs and make Pitt County, prosperous again. So thank you for allowing us to be here.
Sir. At this time, we should have public hearing open. If anybody,
Mr. Chairman, nobody signed up unless there's somebody in the audience who'd like to come forward and speak.
I hear none now. We shall declare the public hearing closed. What's the favor of the board?
Move for acceptance.
Second.
Has been moved and properly second. Let it be known by your vote, please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you. Public address to the board.
Again, nobody signed up unless there's somebody in the audience.
Anyone in the audience may have anything to address the board. I hear none. Items for report. We're going to ask Dave Peterson, if he would, come. Trillium Health.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me today. My name's Dave Peterson. I'm the Senior Regional Director at Trillium Health Resources, and I was pointed out last year, since I've been doing these presentations for 5 years, Scott kindly pointed out to me that I need to go through what Trillium was first before giving any updates. And so I first want to thank Commissioner Huggins for being on our Regional Advisory Board, and also Deborah Herring, who's on our Regional Advisory Board, and they give us a lot of good advice throughout our process. And also Keith Letchworth, who's our system of care person in the back row. He's a Trillium Health employee. And so I'll go through this, my clicker. So we're going to hit on a couple of things about who we are. Medicaid Transformation changes, which is the big piece of this presentation today. What insurance company partners are going to be looking like, our organizational changes, and some of our county data for Pitt County at the very end. So first and foremost, Trillium Health Resources covers 26 counties. We oversee mental health, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse services throughout our 26 counties. We have about 266 individuals that are Medicaid, 266,000 individuals that are Medicaid eligible. We serve about 57,000 individuals each year, and then you can see how it's broken down between the percentage of about 71% of them have mental health needs, 19% with substance use disorder needs, and about 10% with intellectual and developmental disability needs. We oversee about 500 agencies throughout our 26 counties we have contracts with. Our budget last year for services was about $475 million, and we serve the smallest county like Terrell County, and our largest county is New Hanover. So we go all the way from Northampton and Currituck all the way down to Brunswick County, okay? So we cover the whole coast. You can see that on the map. We divide into regions, and I'm the Central Regional Director, the darker green, and that's from Nash County all the way out to Dare County. And you can see our total population in the Central region is about 500,000 people. So the big changes that are starting to happen with the legislators, about a year ago, they decided to have the private insurance companies to start doing some of the Medicaid services that we currently cover at Trillium, all right? So they put out a bid to the insurance companies, and here you'll see the 5 insurance companies that won the bid: AmeriHealth, Blue Cross Blue Shield, which everybody knows, United Healthcare, WellCare, and Carolina Complete. These insurance companies will be managing the low to moderate risk individuals that we currently serve. So that number of 57,000 that you saw earlier, a lot of those folks are going to be going over to the private insurance companies, okay? And I'll talk a little bit about that a little more. Here is the map that the state put together for these regions. And as you can see, there's 6 regions, all right? These are the insurance companies' maps, and and I'm going to go back one slide. You'll see Carolina Complete Health covers regions 3, 4, and 5. Well, you can see here what 3, 4, and 5 is, all right? And that map is for the insurance companies, not for Trillium, okay? That map is for the insurance companies, not for Trillium, all right? That being said, that was the standard plan, and that's what they're calling the private insurance companies taking over the low to moderate risk. We, the managed care organizations across the state that currently do this, there's 7 of us, are going to be called the tailored plan, all right? In legislation, it says there's going to be 5 to 7 tailored plans. And this was decided by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. They had a meeting. We had representatives of county commissioners at the state meeting from Trillium on that decision. And so the map is going to stay the same as it currently is right now for us, until the state decides whether they want to keep the 7 managed care organizations in there, or go down to 6, or go down to 5. You all have been with us for a very long time, and you know how we've expanded from 19 counties to 24 counties, to 25 when we added Nash County, to 26 last year when we added Columbus County. This potentially could mean additional counties because we are one of the best MCOs in the state, and we hope to get the bid when we apply. Therefore, what we'll be managing is the high-risk individuals, all right, with mental health, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse. This application that we're supposed to be putting in to meet these requirements, it's changing, and I'll go in a little bit about that. They first said late winter, and now they're saying early spring, okay? In my mind, late winter is always February-ish. Well, early spring means April, possibly even May now. The big change now, if you think about the private insurance companies taking over the low to moderate risk individuals and us just managing the high risk individuals, our total number is going to approximately go down to about 18,000 from the 57,000. And then you're saying, well, then how many people are you going to have to cut? This last bullet is the biggie, though. We are now going to be managing the whole person, not just their mental health issues, but also their physical health issues. And those of you that have been around a long time, there was a huge class action lawsuit back in the 90s called the Thomas S. lawsuit, all right? That was the one where we did manage way back then the whole person, all right? So we're going back to potentially managing the whole person. This did come in, original plans was for it to come in 2 phases. for the standard plans to go live in part of those regions on November. And then phase 1 got moved to the February date, all right? But then, as everybody knows in this room, the DHHS suspended the Medicaid transformation process because there was no budget. Obviously, everybody knows we're operating off of last year's budget, all right? And since the governor and the legislators have not approved our budget yet, they can't approve these new insurance companies coming in and us moving towards a tailored plan. And until that gets resolved, the secretary this time has said we're no longer going to put a date of when you go live, all right? They are still going to be putting the RFP out for us in late winter, early spring now. We're still probably going to have to apply for that, and that means a lot of infrastructure issues and changes that we're going to have to make, hopefully when the budget does get passed by the state. The impact today, folks are concerned there will be no changes as of right now with any of the services and supports that individuals are receiving out there right now, all right? We're going to still move forward with our infrastructure changes to move towards a tailored plan. And since we're now dealing with the whole person, or going to be dealing with the whole person on the physical side, we're going to have to be contracting with every primary care doctor, which we don't do now, all right? Yours and my primary care docs, we're going to be contracting with, because if they serve Medicaid, we have to contract with them. And every single pharmacy, all right? And that's thousands of more contracts, all right? Remember I said we have about 500 contracts right now with mental health providers? Well, that's going to go way up in our numbers of contracts with providers that oversee primary care and pharmaceutical, all right? So some of the changes that we're doing internally, we have now staff internally just focused on this, and they're called the transition team. Because utilization management is going to go way up in other areas on the physical side of the house, we've hired Dr. Paul Garcia to do some utilization management. We're doing care management changes because the care managers now that we have that oversee mental health, developmental disabilities, and substance use are also going to have to oversee the physical side of the house, all right? So we're getting additional resources needed for care management changes. Since we're also managing the health side, we have staff now out in the communities talking about the physical health side of the house. We are doing a lot of healthy eating classes. We're going to be working much closer with our health departments and social services, and that's why one of the reasons we have heard for many years about some of the DSS issues when it comes to the mental health side. And we have hired, and sorry, Jan, we took one of your staff, but we have hired Sean Kenny to now be our DSS liaison, who knows the DSS arena very, very well, so that he can help us partner with DSS, okay? But we've also hired somebody because of the judicial system, the kids in the Department of Juvenile Justice is increasing. We've hired a liaison to help work with DJJ folks. And then our network department has got to expand to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our primary care and our pharmacies. So some of the funding changes, since the standard plans, the private insurance companies are going to be taking a large amount of individuals, okay? They will be managing part of the Medicaid dollars that we currently have. I'll explain real briefly. We get paid on a per member per month for Medicaid. So that per member per month includes the people that are very, very low risk, very low cost, to the very, very high risk. And if the insurance companies are going to be taking the low risk individuals, their per member per month is going to be very low. But if now we're only managing the high risk individuals, our per member per month is going to go way up, because it was, in between the low and the high before. Now that we're just managing the high risk, our per member per month is going to go up. And since we're going to be covering the whole person, we're going to be making sure that the physical needs are met. I'm not going to go through all of these because I know I only have 10 minutes. We have been additional projects that have been going on. We're still giving out naloxone kits. Scott got a bunch of them last couple weeks ago to distribute in this county. We are still doing healthy eating classes and that sort of thing. One of the things that isn't on here is next month, back in August and July, we started meeting with all 26 of our DSSs, and we met with Jan's folks, and we are going to be opening up a DSS respite home for kids. And DSS, Trillium, and the provider that's doing it is going to be the only folks that can refer kids to those homes. A much needed thing. We've heard for years that this was needed, and we're finally able to get those started. Well, because of the hurricane, that has put us way behind, because we did have about 7 homes that we were going to be opening up, but we are going to be opening up 1 or 2 in Pitt County. Okay, so that's just one of the added benefits. We have had a lot of response to the hurricane stuff. We are still doing CIT classes with law enforcement and mental health first aid. So now, Pitt County's numbers. Total numbers of individuals served in Pitt County last fiscal year was 7,626. Those with the primary diagnosis with mental health was 6,066. Those with substance use was 1,738, and those with intellectual and developmental disabilities was 1,056. And as I always put in here, those numbers don't total the 7,626 because some of those folks are dually diagnosed. Okay. And now, any questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the report and for your working through these times with us. The project updates is really interesting. If you could look back at those and highlight maybe some of the ones that you didn't mention. I'm not sure about the food trucks. You were going through that very interesting list, and if we could just take a few moments and make sure we understand all those projects.
So the Oxford House is a national product. We have Oxford houses in Pitt County right now already. Our goal was to open up 20 new Oxford houses in 2020, and we've been working on that for the past 4 years. We're getting close. I think we have 16 open up in our 26 counties, and so we just opened up 2 last year in Nash County. Food trucks. These are food trucks that are managed by individuals with developmental disabilities. All right. So these individuals are not only learning job skills, but hopefully getting off the payroll of Social Security and that type of thing, so that they can make their own income. The healthy eating classes is in every county. We're doing that here in Pitt County. And that's for individuals how to learn to eat healthier so that their long-term life experiences and that sort of thing is better. And we are seeing, because we've been doing it just under a year now, with people eating healthier, there is less hospital admissions, okay, just by eating, all right, which saves a lot of money. I know the bad name that Peloton Bikes has had the past couple of months, but we purchased these before the bad name came out. So we are still distributing the Peloton bikes, and they are with 63 bikes throughout our providers in our counties and 55 different locations. We also purchased this past year 600 naloxone kits and distributed those to the choice of where the county managers wanted them. And so Scott got the 65 kits a couple weeks ago, and we try to do that, and we've been doing that for 4 years now. And we're seeing some really good benefits of that. The data has always shown that. There was a little news article a couple days ago on our naloxone kits.
And could you tell what the naloxone kits are?
Yes, so naloxone kits are when someone is overdosing and on an opioid, the naloxone kits brings them back to life. Plain and simple. It just revives them. It stops the neurons in the brain from moving as quickly, and it brings the breathing back into the individual. All right. And so we're seeing that those are really beneficial. And while that is happening, the good part about it is the individual is then getting some information on potential treatments that they can go to. Okay? Is that all right? We have one of our providers, Integrated Family Services, has a chat app. We thought that this was going to be totally for kids, where, you know, how kids do not talk to us, they text us. And we are seeing more and more 30 to 40-year-olds using this device to talk about their issues with us. And so that is increasing. That started about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So we did send teams out after the last hurricane down to Hyde and Dare counties, especially in Ocracoke. We had folks out there. We're taking a look at, and every year we assess our hurricane issues and how we can improve those. And we're taking a look right now at potentially developing a list of provider agencies that can do first responder for the hurricanes. But this time we had a lot of folks going down there. We did contract with 2 providers this time to do that. Okay. Hope for NC grant, that is one of those grants that the feds passed down, and we were one of the grantees to that, and then we dispersed that out to this company to go out and do some crisis counseling after hurricanes. Last year's grant is supposed to be ending, I think, the next month. And so hopefully we have a calm hurricane season again this year, but we know now how to get federal dollars to help support some crisis counseling. We did have Chalk About Mental Health Day. That was a national movement, and a lot of counties did this, where they would go out onto their sidewalks and just talk about the mental health issues in their community, and talk about that it's not needing to be a stigma. It just needs to be talked about so that it's just like high blood pressure. That's what it needs to be. If it can be more normalized like that, then that's the better. We have a Safe Schools, Healthy Kids project. We are trying to get kids and teachers and parents and administration in the schools to sign up for this online training. And that online training is basically talking about a variety of topics: suicide, bullying, substance abuse, and that sort of thing. And we're also giving out incentives to do that, okay? Outreach project is helping foster kids that have been through the foster care system with the LGBTQ community, and trying to make sure that the kids are being assessed appropriately in foster care. We are seeing an uptick in that also. And then CIT classes are the crisis in community crisis and intensive training classes that we do for law enforcement. Pitt County has been very good. A lot of folks in the law enforcement arena are getting that training with CIT. And then mental health first aid. There's adolescent and adult mental health first aid And those classes are basically for anybody. It can be a church, it can be a school, it can be any type of group that wants to learn more about mental health and early signs of mental health issues, which then can prevent the escalation of mental health and potential ED visits. So, yes, you're welcome.
Scott?
Dave, can you expound upon, you talked about the standard plans being taken over by the insurance companies at some point versus Trillium's going to do the tailored plans. Will your book of business or your footprint of the number of clients you serve be drastically reduced, or how will that affect Trillium as an agency with the insurance companies taking over part of the caseload?
Yeah, so Scott, that's a good question. Our numbers of individuals are going to go down, okay? But, so right now, let's just say Dave needs just mental health services by Trillium, okay? I go to Trillium, or I go to the provider that does those services for Dave, all right? But I go to a completely other insurance company for my physical health, all right? What's going to happen is Trillium is going to be now managing both the physical health of Dave and the mental health of Dave, okay? So that's why we're going to have thousands of contracts with primary care doctors and pharmacies. And so our numbers are going to go down, but our oversight of the whole person is a whole different ballgame.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When you said the physical, I think about dialysis,
Yep.
and there seems to be an increasing number of residents going into dialysis. Where will transportation, because the problem there is transportation
Yes.
with people who can't make it. And whatever, how much of that you're gonna assume?
Yeah, so transportation is one of the hot topics right now on whether we're going to be getting some of that or if it's going to stay where it is now, because right now we don't oversee transportation. So we don't know if that's going to be under our budget yet or not. It's going to be up to
I was hoping you
the,
were gonna take it over.
yeah, it's going to be up to the state to see who is going to be responsible for that. But right now, we don't oversee that. Good question.
I know you partner with some of our schools to help them provide counseling services to
Yes.
some students. Mr. Colson and I were at a school a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You know, the questions, Dave, thank you for your excellent presentation,
You're
and
welcome.
continue the good work you're doing.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm going to ask Barnett if you come now for the monthly financial report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Board of Commissioners. I bring for you today our monthly financial report for our sixth period ending December 31st, 2019. That's exactly 50% of our fiscal year. On the general fund side, we have brought in 56% of our anticipated revenues, and we have spent 48% of them. Our revenues are slightly lower this fiscal year than last year, and our expenses are slightly up, primarily due to the fact of the acquisition of the Warren Farm property back in July. On the solid waste side, we have brought in an anticipated revenues at 64.38%, and we have spent at 44.27%. If there are any questions.
Okay,
I move for acceptance.
Second.
that's been moved and properly second. Let it be known by your vote, please. Thank you. We now have Chip Man with the 2020 reappraisal update.
Morning, Chairman McClawhorn, Commissioners, Mr. Manager. It's good to be with y'all this morning. This morning, we're bringing to you a report. Basically, it's an update status of where we're at on the 2020 reappraisal. This morning, we're going to be sharing a PowerPoint presentation with you. At the end of it, we'll be passing this out to you, so you'll have a copy of it as well. And also, we'll be sharing a video that we're going to be putting on Pitt TV that will also inform and educate our citizens that we are in the process of doing our final edits on our reappraisal, and that they will be getting our new values of notices in the mail, hopefully by mid-February. So to begin, key facts, we have appraised almost 75,000 parcels of real property. There's 956 neighborhoods. The last reappraisal was 2016, and the next reappraisal will be 2024. Our objectives going into this reappraisal is to reappraise all properties located within Pitt County at 100% of market value, which is known as its true value, as of effective date of January 1st, 2020, by recognizing our current market conditions in Pitt County. Our second objective is to create equity between the different classes of property. This is personal property, real property, and our public service companies. We want to notify our citizens, hopefully by February 15th, of their new values that we'll be using for budget purposes over the next 4 years. Throughout this process, we want to engage our citizens and let them be empowered and aware of what we're doing as far as the reappraisal, and actually give them a voice in how we come to true value on their properties. So the first thing that we do is we consider what are the market conditions in Pitt County. And just to let you know, the market conditions are strong. This is through the work and efforts of many of y'all on this board, many of our partners in the community. This is a good thing that we're getting ready to show you. One thing that we're looking at as far as qualified sales of single-family homes is they're up by 25% since 2016. Going into 16, we had 2,669 properties that have sold that we could use to build our schedules. Going into this reappraisal, or throughout 19, that was 3,336 parcels. And what we've seen is a decrease in the amount of inventory in Pitt County. Inventory levels back for the 2016 reappraisal was 8.2 months. That's what the inventory levels were in Pitt County. Currently, it's about 1.7 months. Also, the days on the market of these homes has decreased from 95 days down to 14 days. Many of these properties are coming on market with multiple offers, and these homes are being sold within days of coming on the market. The median home price has increased from $139,000 back in 2015 to $265,200 in 2019. 2019 single-family home sales, roughly 1,500 parcels below $150,000 makes up 45% of our market or thereabouts. Between 150 to 250, about 39%. 250 to 350, about 11%. And above 350 is 5.04%. These market conditions show that supply is limited and demand is high for people to come into Pitt County. Also shows that people who've invested in Pitt County with their homes and purchasing homes in Pitt County are realizing increase in values. This is a good thing. That's most of what people's largest investment is in their home, and to see it appreciate in Pitt County is a good thing. Today I'm also joined by Chip Main, He's our assistant tax administrator. He's also our reappraisal coordinator. Also, I'm joined by Russell Hill. He's our real property manager who actually oversees the day-to-day operations of the reappraisal. So right now, I want to turn it over to Chip and have him speak about the market values and equities.
Good morning. I'd like the opportunity to speak to you now about the impact of the 2020 reval, how the adjustment to the new market values is going to impact the citizens of Pitt County. By striving to arrive at 100% of market value, our goal is to have an assessment level of 100%. What that means is if your home sells for $100,000, ideally, if we had a level of assessment of 100%, then we would appraise your home at $100,000. And if your home was $200,000, then ideally, if the value would be $200,000. And that's what our goal is. That's what our general statutes require, that we attempt to arrive at 100% of the valuation. Okay. Because of the objectives of getting all the values throughout the county at 100%, we're seeing a wide range of changes to the values throughout the county. We have about 20% of the properties, of the nearly 75,000 properties, about 20% of them are going to stay fairly close to being the same. About 14.45% are going to go up a little bit, up to 5%. Okay, so that equates to about 34.85 or 35% of all the property in the county is going to change, either stay about the same or go up 5%, which means that 65% of the properties, as far as the market value goes, is going to change anywhere from 5% to over 30%. So that's quite a range. Now, I want to maintain that this is market value. This is not necessarily assessed value. We have a lot of land in the county is under present use value, so if it's farm values, you know, that'll be a whole different calculation in their assessed value. Plus, we have a lot of programs for exemption, elderly exemption, and all those other adjustments that affect the actual taxable value of the properties. This is strictly the changes in the market value. So the next slide is a map just representing the percent changes that I just spoke to you about. What we're seeing is in the lower right-hand corner of the map, that's the Simpson, Grimesland, Chicad, Swift Creek area. Those areas we've experienced, it's somewhat of a rural area, but we're seeing a lot of development, especially in the Chicad area. A lot of what used to be farmland, we have developers going down there and buying tracts of land and turning it into residential. And that's one of the reasons that you're seeing some of the increases in excess of 30% in that area. And I want to say that there's still a lot of that area is farmland. So even though the market value is exceeding the 30% increase, they're still going to be taxed at a lesser value. Other areas that we're experiencing the same thing in the northeastern side of the county, northern Belvoir and west of Bethel. That previously, there's a lot of farmland up in there. We're seeing increases in that area also. And then also in Arthur, just west of Greenville. That's a good area where we're seeing some residential development. But that's kind of an overview of the impact of what we're going to see occur during this reappraisal project. Okay. The next thing I'll speak to is on the week of February the 10th, we'll be preparing and mailing the reappraisal notices to all 75,000 property owners. The idea is to get them out as early as they can. We're fairly well convinced they'll get them by the 15th on Saturday. This is an example of what the notice looks like. The top half of it, as you can see, it says Pitt County Reappraisal Notice effective January 1st, 2020. This is not a bill, it's just a notice of your valuation change, which you will basically be taxed on for the next 4 years unless there's some improvements or changes to your property during that time. The actual informal appeal form is in the bottom of that notice, and we're asking people to respond to us within 30 days so that if they have some concerns about their valuations, then we can address them. That's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to Russell now to explain some more things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Like Chip said, when we mail out the notices, we were also including an insert for them to be able to find more information on their properties. Like Sam said, the inventories are at all-time lows. So we want the citizens, if you're not familiar with your neighborhood or if they're only staying on the market on 14 days, you may not even see a house go for sale. It may be sold and the sign is out before that time comes up. So we want to be able to show the citizens where they can go out and look at the sales that our office went in and qualified over the last couple of years. And so what the next couple of slides I'm going to go over will show you how you can find that information along with some other things on our property record card online. Everybody's probably very familiar with our Opus website, and we partner with our MIS department to tie our property record card into that because everybody's very familiar with it. As most people know, you can find information on the property by looking for the parcel search through owner name, address, or the parcel number. When you choose one of those search options, it'll go to that screen and it will highlight the particular information for that property that you have in blue. And then right under that, there's a more info under the parcel number on the right-hand side. It's a smaller number. If you click that button, it would actually open up the property record card for that particular property that you're on. This particular property is sold in June of 2019 for $170,000. When you first go into the property record card on the left-hand side of the screen, it'll be a photo of the property, and it would also have a map on the right-hand side, and you will find these three buttons that talk about the tax bill, comper, and a more button to give you more information about the property. Once you click the tax bill button, we will have access to tax bills going back to 2006 if available for you. So if you want to go back and look and see what was the prior values on the property, when did you pay them, how much were the tax bills, you can go back. In this particular slide, it was actually the 2015 tax bill, and it's showing the tax value of $166,151. If you want to look at the comper button, if you click that button, what it does, it will actually open up a map showing surrounding sales of that property. The subject property is in red, and the yellow ones are sales that took place around that property. You can refine your search by distance, sales date, living area, year built, full baths, bedrooms. And as you are looking at, on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a map. And then on the left-hand side, the subject property is at the top. And then you actually can go through, it's got top 100 nearby sales. And under that, that's actually listing those sales that we have in our office. And then if you click the More button, it'll present you with 100 more sales in the recent area. but it will, it's not as, the search isn't as refined, that's more defined for you. But the citizen can click on the link to the left, kind of see a photo. It gives the same information as the sales date, the location, and the distance from the subject property. That's into my part of the presentation, and Sam will be here to finish up for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip and Russell. And also thank you to the tax office staff. There's been 14 of us working on this reappraisal. Couldn't have done it. It's been a good year working with these individuals to get to where we feel market value is at. Here's what we, as far as engaging the taxpayer or the citizens, here's the benefits. By us being as transparent as we can be, hopefully we're going to improve the accuracy of our information and our data that we have within our tax system. Also, we want buy-in from our citizens. By being transparent, hopefully they'll buy in, and also by stakeholders. We also want to reduce releases and refunds that can possibly come at a later date if we did not inform our citizens of this process and the values that will be placed on their properties for the next 4 years. We also want to build a relationship with stakeholders, with our citizens. Like I said, we want to be transparent, and hopefully through this process we can build trust between the tax office staff, the tax office, and our citizens. And before we take questions, we want to play the video that we're going to be put on, that's going to be put on Pitt TV.
Bear with us. This is a 6-minute video, but I think it's worth taking 6 minutes to watch.
Did you know that over 180,000 people live, work, and play in Pitt County? In one way or another, each individual resident of this community relies on the infrastructure and public services provided by their county government. While everybody assumes a part of those services are funded through property taxes, many don't realize the effort that goes into ensuring property taxes in Pitt County are fair and equitable across the county. By distributing the tax burden in a fair and equitable way, we help sustain the proper funding that sustains the services Pitt County provides to our community. These include education, emergency response, and public health services, just to name a few. Over the next few minutes, we'll briefly tell you about the 2020 reappraisal process, what it is, why is it done, and what results can you expect to see from it as a Pitt County property owner. Remember that if at any point you have further questions or need more detail about the reappraisal process, please contact the Pitt County Tax Administration at 252-902-3390. What is reappraisal? Reappraisal, sometimes called revaluation, is the process of updating the value of all real property within the county. The primary purpose of this process is to equalize the tax burden among all classes of property. This is done by determining the market value of all real property. Market value is the estimated price at which a property would sell for in a competitive setting, and is generally determined from sales between unrelated and unbiased buyers and sellers. Although required by the state of North Carolina at least once every 8 years, Pitt County has joined many other counties in conducting reappraisals every 4 years, with the most recent appraisal being completed in 2016. The more frequent schedule recognizes and reflects the fact that different properties increase or decrease in value at different rates. This allows for a more fair and equitable tax burden among property owners, considering the size, amount of development, or location of their property. Appraisals are conducted by real property employees of Pitt County and not by an outside appraisal company. Our appraisers are veteran real property appraisers with over 100 combined years of experience. Each appraiser on staff is certified by the North Carolina Department of Revenue. Property values are not created or set by the appraiser of the tax office. People who buy and sell real estate in the open market establish market values. The appraiser's job is to diligently and carefully research and analyze those sales in our local market to determine an estimate of market value for all properties, as is required by law. Why is this needed? As you may have noticed, Pitt County is growing. Early estimates prior to the 2020 census show over 181,000 people living in Pitt County. That's an increase of over 40% in the last 30 years. Each year, more and more people are attracted to this community for the economic, domestic, and recreational opportunities it provides. As more people are choosing to live and buy property in Pitt County, the increased demand for housing and commercial space has the added benefit of raising the value of the already established properties. This is why the 4-year cycle on which Pitt County operates its reappraisal process is so vital. It helps to ensure property values more accurately reflect the current market. The reappraisal process can be lengthy, taking several years to complete. As part of the process, appraisers review information currently on the tax records about each property, and then visit those properties to verify accuracy. These efforts have been underway since the completion of the previous reappraisal in 2016. Now that all properties have been verified for the current 2020 year, all real property owners have been mailed a reappraisal notice as of the week of February the 10th, with the new tax values having become effective January 1st, 2020. For most property owners, the biggest question is, how will reappraisal affect my tax bill? The answer to that depends on two factors. First, how much your property value has changed, and second, how much the tax rate changes. Because of the population growth and economic success experienced in recent years, the market is anticipated to be greater following the 2020 reappraisal. This provides the value part of this equation. The tax rate portion is determined by the Pitt County Board of Commissioners, who set the tax rate annually based upon the budgetary requirements of the county. Revenues received from all sources, including the state, are considered as the board sets a tax rate. The tax rate for fiscal year 2020-2021 will be determined by the Board of Commissioners prior to July 1st and will be based on the level of services Pitt County provides its citizens and the revenue needed to support those services. To review, the new values went into effect on January 1st, with notices of those assessed values being mailed out to all property owners the week of February 10th. The Board of Commissioners will set the new tax rate prior to July 1st, when tax bills with the newly assessed values will be mailed out later that same month. Tax bills will become due on September 1st and will be considered past due in January of 2021. If the new values are not agreed with, any property owner has the right to appeal their assessment. Instructions for the appeal were included with the reappraisal notices sent out in February. If you have further questions about the appeal process or reappraisal in general, please contact Pitt County Tax Administration at 252-902-3390 or visit their page on the Pitt County website at www.pittcountync.gov/tax.
Went a little bit too fast. Also, before we take questions, just want to again go through the appeals process. Hopefully by February 15th, which is a Saturday, all the citizens of Pitt County will have their actual reappraisal notices in hand. We hope to get them mailed out, our file sent to our print vendor that Monday, and then it's up to how fast they can print these notices, how fast the U.S. Mail can deliver them, and when the citizen will actually have them in hand. Informal reviews for the citizens that are listening, that is the best way to get to work with us through this informal review process. What this does, if you have concerns about your property's value after you've researched online, then you can contact us. We're more than willing to talk to you about your properties. We're willing to go out and visit the properties and take into consideration all facts. So when we come to true value, hopefully we have an agreement with the taxpayer on what their value actually is. If we cannot agree, then there is a formal review process or formal appeals, and that's with the Pitt County Board of Equalization and Review, and that will start April 6th, which is a Monday, and lasts roughly to about May 6th. At that point, if citizens cannot agree with their values with the Pitt County Board of Equalization and Review, they have the right to go to the North Carolina Property Tax Commission to have their case heard there. And ultimately, their case can go all the way to the North Carolina Supreme Court, but the next level will be the North Carolina Court of Appeals. So, like I said, we do want citizens to reach out to us through this informal process. We feel like the overwhelming majority of the appeals will be handled during this phase of their due process. So that being said, are there any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Sam. You mentioned that there are potential exemptions for elderly, potential folks on fixed income. Wondered what, for folks that are listening in and want to know more about that process and maybe not as attuned to technology as maybe someone that's younger, what steps is your office making to facilitate those individuals that are eligible to take advantage of it, assuming that they're, need to make application for those exemptions?
Good question. During the listing period, right now, which we just completed, but all the way up through mid-year, up through June 1st, they can make application for the elderly or disabled or the veterans exclusions, which these are 3 exclusions that the state offers that we administer here on the local level. Basically, if a citizen's making less than $31,000 a year combined income, then they could qualify to have 50% of the value of their home or $25,000 of value excluded, whichever one's greater. That's on the elderly and disabled. Veterans receive $45,000, and there's no income limit there. We notify citizens during the listing period on back of listing forms about the programs, and also on the back of our tax bills that will go out. So it's never too late in North Carolina to apply for this, as long as you do it in the calendar year that the exclusion be recognized. So we try our best to work with taxpayers, educate them. If they need help or assistance in completing the application, we can mail it to them, and then they can return it back to us, or they can come to the office, and we're located at 110 South Evans Street to assist in that process. And Commissioner Mary Perkins Williams brought up about transportation. We have appraisers in the field that cover the entire county, and if somebody cannot come to us, we'd be more than happy to come to them and give them an application and assist them in making an application. Good question, thank you.
Let's go.
Is Social Security considered income?
It is, yes, sir.
So what is not considered income?
Pretty much income is from all available resources. If it's on the front of their 1040 form as income, then we're going to have to recognize that as income. But we're more than willing to, and if somebody does not qualify this year because maybe they're a few $100s over, they need to consider this every year because that income level does go up. Thank you.
So if the values increase 30% now due to like a limited supply of houses, and looking at that map, it looks like I would say a good majority of District 6 is going to fall under the 30% increase. With growth, and if the supply is not as limited in the next year or two, their values will decrease, but they'll still have to pay that 30% increase until the next reappraisal. Is that correct?
That's correct. We do reappraisals every 4 years. And what we try to do is to try to establish level values for our budget purposes and not to try to adjust every year for market conditions. That being said, I do believe by the end of, if everything's stays the same in the economy and our inventory levels, I do believe by the end of 2020, we'll probably be about 95% of the value of market value. Market value, even since January 1st, is still increasing. To anybody who wants to come to Pitt County and build homes, this is a great time to come to Pitt County and invest. Pitt County needs housing. Anything up to the 250 mark, Pitt County needs that assistance. And that's the reason why we put them statistics out, so maybe people will come to Pitt County and build homes and help us match supply and demand.
And I guess my next comment would maybe be directed back at us. I sure hope that we will take the revenue neutral tax approach so that we're not left with a lot of taxpayers paying 30% more on their tax bill.
Commissioner Perkins.
Thank you for the handout. My area is always told that you can't build because of drainage, the water table, and very little development is in that area. And people are concerned about flooding as it relates to current homes and their septic system and water system. How is that flooding or water table factored into this, as far as increase, decrease, or remain the same?
Yep. What we do is we look at every market area and what goes on in that market. And what we do is we analyze the sales that are in that market. And if the market is telling us that the property is selling higher, then we make adjustments to go to market value by analyzing the sales that are in that area. But again, if any citizen has issues that we need to take into consideration on their market values, they need to contact us so we can go out and put an accurate value on their properties.
Well, it looks like in my district, and I was looking at the map, and I was looking at the pink in the northern part and the pink in the southern part. There were a lot of pink in the southern part and very little, but we had a lot of pink in the northern part. Haven't seen much growth as far as residents are concerned, but I do know that we have a lot of growth in District 2 as it relates to industry. And the value of industry and district residents, does it impact?
It does. It does. I mean, not to say that we're going to take the value of that property and use it to value somebody else's property, but as companies come and they do build, then that does make more people move to Pitt County, which makes housing to become even more limited. And so what houses we have out here in the county, people are paying more for these homes today than they ever have before. And that's what happens when the inventory levels get as low as they are today.
My final question. The impact of mobile homes, which is, gosh, I think we have a number of them, a very large number of them, and fewer what I call stick built, the ones that built where you pour the foundation and then build up. We don't have that many in District 2. The property tax for that and the deterioration of the mobile home and the water table and moisture in the air, who considers that as it relates to taxes?
What we do is we look at manufactured mobile home, whether it's personal or real. Personal gets valued every year based strictly on the conditions of the manufactured home. The real, we take a look at the entire bundle of rights of that property, and we judge that against market value and what sales are doing in that market.
Well, I'm looking at the physical. I said that was my last question, didn't I? Excuse me, but I'm looking at the physical of the mobile home, because I get a lot of complaints about them, and where you have half of the mobile home that's livable and have electric, and the other half of a single wide does not have it. And the client or the residence is renting. How can that residence, how does that resident fit into that tax equation? I don't know the question I'm trying to ask you, but the residence is complaining about the physical, and the owner says, move out, and the resident has no place to go. That's what I'm trying to get to with taxing.
And what we do is we tax the owner of record, but it's strict, I mean, part of our equation is the conditions of the residence. And the mobile home that you just described sounds like we would need to give additional depreciation to that, because if half of the electrical is not working, or if it's where you can't live in that half, then that is definitely some depreciation that we need to give to that piece of property.
Does the total park value into the number of mobile homes, the land size as it relates to the number of lots?
Right. The owner of the land we will tax. The value of the mobile homes, we will tax the actual owner of the mobile home. If that's the park owner, we will tax them.
Upkeep,
we
roads and drainage and stuff?
For us, we take them in consideration as we value the property, but we have nothing to do with the enforcement of living conditions. We just strictly value the property that is our subject property.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very interesting report, and I appreciate all the work. I don't quite recognize Fountain in a lot of these numbers, and I'm just curious about, in terms of real value, for example, a building that was listed downtown is listed as being valued at $20,000, is given to someone who in turn sells that building for $7,500. And when we're looking at how that impacts the value of the building, and that seems a drastic underpaying of value. What does that do to the valuation of that property?
What we do is we qualify every sale that comes through the Register of Deeds. And what we look at to see basically if there's a willing buyer and a willing seller, both understanding the uses of the property and the potential uses of the properties. And if we feel like this is a true arm's length market transaction, we will qualify that sale and we'll use it. But if this is not a true market sale, if this is a gift, we will disqualify that sale and we will not use that sale as we tax the surrounding property owners.
So how do you determine that it's a gift? Another example, a house behind ours is valued at $30,000 and it sells for $20,000, and it's clearly not a gift. It's neighborhood and property upkeep and issues like that, and so there seems like there might be a middle range between gift and.
Yeah. If it's based truly on market conditions, we're going to use that sale, and we're going to use that as we value the surrounding properties. What we do is, back in August, we talked about schedule of values, and that's how we kind of build. That is how we build our schedule of values. Is based on these sales, whether they're qualified or not. But as we qualify, the North Carolina Department of Revenue has roughly about 18 criteria that we use to say whether this is a true market sale or not. Some of it, if it's between relatives, we will not use that sale. If it's between companies owned by the same parent company, we will not use that. If it involves a bank sale, we will not use that sale either. We'll throw them type of sales out. So we're totally looking at strictly arm's length transactions and market value of that neighborhood.
Okay. I see no other questions, and I want to tell you we appreciate the hard work that you all doing, and we know that you're going to be challenged some, but keep up the fine work. Thank you very much.
Right. I'd like to give praise to the appraisal staff. These are just a representation of who's been doing this work this year, and to the other 12 staff members or 11 staff members back at the office, thank you to them as well. They've been working very hard for Pitt County this year. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you.
There is no page 94.
Thank you very much. If we have James Rhodes, if he will come for this 2020 census.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and this is kind of running along the same theme that Sam was just here talking about, and that's an education / promotional theme to our public. So today, I just want to bring you up to date on some of the efforts with the 2020 census, where we're heading to, what some of the needs are, and again, also for the viewing public. First up, we're getting mighty close. Census Day is April 1st. We're less than 2 months away from that. You'll be getting information, the viewing public will be getting information in advance of April 1st. April 1st is the deadline that we'd like to have everyone complete their forms this year. And I'll be sharing a little bit more information about how to complete those forms later in the presentation. So the goal, of course, is to count everyone once and in the right place, and it is vitally important for a number of reasons that we count people, whether it be for your election districts or where we might have certain programs, could be DSS programs or other programs that are delivered here in the county. It is required by our U.S. Census. Those of you that are in genealogy probably know our first U.S. Census was back in 1790. We've had it every 10 years. It's cited in the U.S. Constitution that it will be delivered every 10 years. It does help not only with your election districts at the state level and also the federal level. So we're right on the cusp here in North Carolina of possibly getting a new representative. So it is important not only for us here in Pitt County, but all of North Carolina. It all comes down to money. What happens if we don't get everyone counted here? It's estimated that at the federal level, we'll lose about $1,600 per year. Tag on about $200 from the state, that's about $1,800 per year. Over a 10-year period, that can equate up getting close to $20,000 per person. Again, that's our charge. We're trying to get out there to make people more educated about this process and to feel comfortable about filling out their census forms. So in the past, where have we been? We haven't really stacked up that well against the state, especially back in 2000. Only about 2/3 of the population here in Pitt County. Now, there were some follow-ups and some other things that went on, but at the initial response rate, it was only 65%. Last time, we had a complete count committee. I'm going to say that that group was vitally important in getting that census rate raised up to the level that it was. Almost 3/4, not quite at the state level. This time, 2020, we're looking at having a response rate of 82%, which is also the state's. A lot of different response rates around the community. We're hitting some of these smaller municipalities to try to make sure that those know about what's coming and getting their representatives on our complete count committee. We have met 3 times already. We've got a very diverse group, not only of local governments, but of some educational groups here, also civic groups. A lot of folks have come to the table, and we're excited about getting the word out as best we can. We're continuing to add people. If people are interested in serving, we can certainly add them to this group. So what you'll hear this morning is some of the presentations that we've made around the community. That's from basically your county staff. But just know, these people that are in the picture here have been vital in getting it out to their various groups that they're affiliated with and their corners of the county geographically. We're also involved with the state complete count committee and the Latinx group that's also vitally important in getting the word out to our Hispanic population. We had a kickoff meeting for the complete count committee with then Chairwoman Beth Ward last summer. Our partnership specialist was there. We had a big group, big turnout. Had a couple of meetings since then. The picture on the left is Bob Coates. He's our North Carolina census liaison to the governor, and he provides a tremendous amount of information to us throughout the time period between the complete count committee meetings as well. We're excited to say Farmville also has kicked off one. We were over there to kind of give them some of the background information, and they're moving forward with their group. We've been everywhere. Started at the county fair, got a very diverse group coming through to play. If you're familiar with Plinko, nothing like giving the kids something, attracting the parents in and asking them a census question. So it really got people involved, and I hope that they went about telling other people about it as well. Legislators' breakfast up in Bethel. Again, the Latino group were actually out there. This is at East Carolina, where we had a big group to come together to talk about ways of getting the word out best in our community. Also here, Jan was nice enough to invite us out to the DSS staff meeting. Those staff members touch on a lot of our hard to reach and our lower response rates in our community. So it was vital that we get the information to them as well. Picked some of the medical groups and did have to show Dr. Silvernail actually with his Polar Express impersonation back around Christmas time, not only sharing a story but talking about the census as well with a lot of the clients there. We go over to a lot of different groups. Again, this was on campus. Why is it important on campus? Those students are ours. They're here over 6 months out of the year. They're ours. They're here 2 semesters. They're ours, unless they're commuting in. So the students that are on campus, they're easier to count. They're in group quarters. We'll get that information very easily from the university. Some of these off-campus sites, we've been over to talk with the housing groups there. They also can assist in collecting some of that information. But we've got students that live in a lot of single-family homes. So I'll say we've got a couple of interns that have been helpful over at the student union, setting up a table there, educating students about, they took the Plinko board too, to educate them about filling out those forms if they receive them. A lot of other groups that we've been to touch on, continually giving updates, especially like with the planning board meeting where that's televised as well. Social media, we're out there. Tracy Cash with our staff has been instrumental in promoting just about every week some new event. So it's showing up on some people's phones anyway. Other old hard copies, if you've gotten your Greenville Utilities bill this month, you might have seen that there's actually something in the flyer there in their quarterly newsletter. Also, some of the municipalities have also put it in theirs. We even touched with the Meals on Wheels distribution, and they were able to provide information there. Our website has some of everything, so we try to continually move people to our website. It's got the countdown. It's got a lot of information about our activities and a lot of what's been discussed already this morning. The big thing, we're short on workers. We only have about half the folks that are needed to be workers here as far as enumerating. So if Mr. Colson doesn't fill out his form, they'll come knocking on his door after about 2 or 3 other attempts of mailing him something. These positions pay fairly well. You can see around the county, around the more urban areas, they're pretty much stacked up as far as their workers. We don't have the workers we need here. So what are we doing? We're bringing the NC Works bus here next Friday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, from noon to 7, just adjacent to Shepherd Memorial Library. This is a great opportunity for any number of folks to come and fill out this form. Even better than that, they can go to NC Works here even before the bus gets here and fill out an application to work with the census. We really need local census workers that know about our community to get out there and enumerate. Also, another big day, we're going to have a couple of more complete count committee meetings, but April 1st is Census Day. We'll be out and about in the community. By that time, As I've already said, we hope you filled out your forms by then. And if you haven't, we're going to want to make sure that you do so as quickly as possible. So how do you do it this time? It's quickly and easily. You'll be getting an invitation in the mail. Scan your QR code. Fill out, it's about 10 questions. Fill it right out on your phone. Do it on your computer screen, or if you just prefer it, Ms. Perkins-Williams, to do it on the hard copy, they'll send you a hard copy too. So a lot of different ways to do it. We are working with our public libraries. We realize not everyone has internet access, but they are able to go to our public libraries and use the public computers there. So where are the people in our community? What types of forms are they getting? Those people residing pretty much south of the river in these purple areas will get the invitation to fill it out online. Those areas of our community are more apt to have an internet connection. At the very southern end around Grifton, up around Fountain, and also north of the river, you get both the invitation to fill it out online and a hard copy. So, if there are questions about that, please let us know. And here is your sample invitation. This is what you should get in the mail. It will give you information about how to fill it out and when to fill it out. Quick and easy. Age, sex, race type questions. How many people living in your household? Very easy. So again, our key dates moving forward, you should be getting that invitation sometime early to mid-March. So just over a month and a half from now, those invitations will be coming out through the U.S. Postal Service. Census Day, April 1st, then the follow-up, probably 2 or 3 months. Those enumerators will be hitting the field hard for whoever has not filled out their forms. All this data is required to be delivered to the President of the United States by the end of this calendar year. So the enumeration period is relatively short. That's why it's important to get those forms filled out beforehand. And then 2021, that's when the fund starts here locally too. Those population numbers are delivered back to our local governments and state governments, and we will also more than likely need to adjust some of our district lines, our election district lines, to go along with the population shifts. And I will put in a plug for Sam. He was very gracious in allowing us to put into all the mailings that are going out in a couple of weeks, one little insert about the census. So again, we're trying to touch people every way we can. 10 minutes, 10 questions. It affects us for a full 10 years. We need to get the money that is appropriated to Pitt County here. So welcome any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Moore?
2 things. I'm sure that you're going to have something speaking to this kind of running continuously over the county TV. Okay, good. The other thing is, say again the easiest way for people to apply to work as census workers. I know that you had just, give a little more verbalization to that, because it's a good job, it's good money, and, for what you have to do. So, and I've had a few people to ask about it, but, not an overwhelming number, but.
It is vitally important that people go online to apply for this. And on the screen right now, you can see you can apply online, 2020census.gov/jobs, JOBS. Starting hourly rate is $16. That is pretty good for our local area. And depending on, that's your basic enumerators. If you qualify for some of the other positions, it's at a higher rate. We do also have a local census office here in Greenville. We were fortunate enough to get one here. So that would be something that would also help attract additional workers to our area.
Where is that office located?
That office is located somewhat pretty close to the Goodwill facility. honey baked hams right within that same complex there.
Fire Tower Road, no, Red Bank.
It's between, right, kind of at the corner of Red Banks and Arlington.
It's Alfred. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a comment, at Mideast meetings, Pitt County is held up. We like to think of ourselves as the leader in many things, but Pitt County work that our departments are doing with this county is held up as the model for the region. And every time I've been, they say, we wish everybody would be as good as Pitt County is at organizing this. The proof will be in how many people we actually count, I guess.
That's right.
Babies. A lot of families tend to leave out the babies, or they don't count the babies as being a person. How are you assuring that parent that the baby need to be counted too, or is that true?
It is true.
Thank
That is a living person. If that baby is born prior to April the 1st, needs to be counted here in Pitt County. So that's a common question we get. That was something we shared with the DSS group as well. We need to count everyone living in that household. So yes, if your cousin's in town and they plan to stay with you for 6 or 8 months or have already been with you 6 or 8 months, they need to be counted in your household. So yes, everyone.
I wanted to raise that question.
James, I want to thank you for your leadership. James has been doing an excellent job in terms of promoting this throughout the county. So we appreciate what you're doing and your committee working with you.
And we appreciate you serving on our complete count committee.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Sam, we'll ask Sam Crooms if he come back up.
Thanks for the physical form.
Good morning again.
Morning.
This morning I bring to you an item for report. It's a report of unpaid taxes for the tax year 2019. These taxes are lien on real property. General Statute 105-369A requires the tax collector to report to the Board of Commissioners annually on the first Monday in February the total amount of unpaid taxes for the current fiscal year that are liens on real property. This report includes data for Pitt County, other special districts, EMS district, and the municipalities of Ayden, Bethel, Falkland, Greenville, Grimesland, and the village of Simpson. I have actually give the actual list to the clerk of these past due accounts. Also attached is basically attached is the report and how they actually break down as far as the county, where the county was at last year. Looks like our collections, as far as the amount, we're doing a little bit better. And also, as far as the Industrial Tax Commission, it's in included, the tax that's included in line 3 with EMS. Also, breakdown of municipalities and for the grand total. So completing this report to you, it's my recommendation that y'all approve the report as presented. Are there any questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I second it.
That's been moved and properly seconded that we approve this report. That'll be known by your vote.
That is not good.
Thank you.
Also got another report for you. This is order for advertisement of these unpaid taxes that are liens on real property. Tax Administration requests approval from the Board of Commissioners to give us an order for advertisement during the week of Wednesday, March 18th, 2020. So we can advertise these unpaid taxes. The order and advertisement of annual requirement for the County of Pitt to comply. This is in compliance with 105-369. The advertisement would also include Pitt County, the towns of Ayden, Bethel, Falkland, Greenville, Grimesland, and the village of Simpson, to include other special assessments. It is my recommendation that y'all approve this order as presented.
So move.
Second.
Has
I
been
wanna
moved and
ask a
properly
question.
second that we approve this. Do you have a question?
Yes. I noticed that, I'm sorry, but as I whispered to my colleague here, why is it that Fountain and is not included? They have a town government,
We've
don't they
never,
have a
I
town?
believe we've never asked.
What we do is we do not collect for them towns, and they would actually advertise their own.
Is it effective? He said,
I shouldn't
Farmville
speak to
does
that.
it. Doesn't it? Doesn't Farmville do it?
We would be happy to entertain
Yeah,
collecting
that's-
for them.
yeah.
Correct.
I think that would be more appropriate for the town
well,
officials.
you know, if it's,
Farmville does it. They've done it for years,
but Farmville is
Fountain
more
would certainly, well, that's what I mean. Fountain,
aggressive about it.
I was
than-
surprised that Fountain wasn't there.
Yeah.
But just like Mr. Elliott just said, we'd be more than happy to collect their taxes and actually put this advertisement in for them.
I certainly would think that Griffin would need it too, based on all the problems they've had. Any of us live in Griffin? Is that something that you can at least look into?
We can reach out to the municipalities that we don't collect for and offer to collect for them. We do charge a percent of the total taxes collected.
That might be the problem.
1.5.
1.5%.
money.
1.5% of all taxes.
That's the problem.
He'll pay for our staff.
But they also collect. They have enforcement that
Correct.
Fountain doesn't have, so there's some value to it, certainly.
Okay.
And
so
we
the
will be
enforcement-
reaching out to them this year. That's part of what I'm going to be doing the second half of the year, is reaching out to these municipalities to see if we can collect for them, provide this service for them. And what it could do is hopefully it will free up their human resources, the people that actually work these accounts, to work in other areas for that town.
At least a trial year might be beneficial for enforcement, and then that might make the difference.
And-
Is
and-
anybody second that? I'll second it.
It's been second. All in favor, let it be known by your vote, please. It's
Mr.
passed.
Chairman, before we move further, could we possibly take a break before our manager's report? Short.
We can, we certainly can. At this time, let's take a 10 minutes break. Thank you very much. We're now ready for the manager's report. Scott?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my report is brief. Just got the next meeting dates, on February 17th at 6 p.m., March 9th at 9 a.m., and then we have the NACO Legislative Conference at the end of this month, and that's the National Association of Counties. That'll be in Washington, D.C. We have 3 commissioners going, Chairman McClawhorn, Commissioner Huggins, Commissioner Perkin-Williams, and myself as manager.
Very good, thank you. Items for consent. Could we give a motion?
Move approval. Second it.
Moving properly second that items for consent be approved. All in favor, let me know by your vote. At this time, we have an item for discussion, the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Paul Dance, if you would come.
Good morning. We've been here so long, I almost said good afternoon. But I'm here today to address the Sheriff CIP budget usage. And in doing that, I want to give you a chronological history on the federal inmate program. In 1996, Sheriff Billy Vanderford began the housing federal inmates in the Pitt County Detention Center for payment from the federal government. Our research indicates he was originally compensated $52 a day per inmate. In 1997, Sheriff Vanderford negotiated a 20-year contract with the federal government, who agreed to construct what we now call the E-Block for the housing of federal inmates. The construction costs for E-Block were minimal, as the county only had to pay for the housing of their inmates, which are predominantly fixed costs associated with our regular general population. E-Block was temporarily then used to hold F-Block inmates for facility maintenance. At the completion of that project, inmates were moved back to F-Block, and E-Block has not been used since. The contract negotiated by Sheriff Vanderford ended in 2017, so E-Block is without question now owned by the county, or then owned by the county, free and clear. Since 1996, the Sheriff's Office has generated roughly $30 million for Pitt County from revenue generated from the federal Fed-Bed inmate program. Again, I'd like to remind you that the Office of the Sheriff is not, nor should it be, a revenue-based entity. I have asked the county manager to provide information accounting for the expenditures of this program's revenue from over the years. The Sheriff's Office needs of personnel, vehicles, and equipment have been ignored for years, while we bring in millions of dollars in revenue that otherwise would not be available. I want to remind everyone that the detention center building belongs to the county of Pitt. The statute only requires the sheriff to operate the detention center by the employment of staff who oversee supervision of inmates and their protection, and the protection of their rights. The building and its maintenance is the sole responsibility of the county. As a reminder, the contract Sheriff Vanderford negotiated in 1997 ended in 2017, and the county received a building expansion that will save taxpayers millions of dollars as the county grows. Several months ago, I stood before this board and requested that money earned from the federal inmate program above the projection be used for Sheriff's Office equipment. At that time, the county manager suggested that the funding be spent through a capital improvement program at my discretion with the approval of county commissioners. I was satisfied with that arrangement, believing that I would finally be able to purchase needed equipment and vehicles. In fact, it was my intent at some point to come to you all and start a conversation about opening E-Block that would potentially create around another $3 million in additional revenues. And that would give you all the ability to double the current projection. The 2019-2020 budget only appropriated the funding necessary for the purchase of 9 vehicles. We are only provided funding for the vehicle purchases every other year. I have a fleet of more than 160 vehicles, which then this would equate to our vehicle fleet being replaced only every 35 years at that rate. My CIP request included the purchase of 3 vans and several other vehicles. In an effort to modernize our office, I also budgeted for a drone and a camera system to assist with our criminal investigations. These are cameras that would go out into the county and be able to, sort of like the Greenville cameras, but not to that extent. I was unable to be at the last meeting, and it was brought to my attention that the county manager recommended this funding for other purposes. Specifically, repairs at the detention center, which, as I described above, are the sole responsibility of the county. I know you often hear me say that I want to be a part of the team. I think I say it almost every time that I'm here. I feel that I have no other choice at this point but to take my ball and go home. I have no intention of forcing my employees to work harder for decent equipment that they are continuously promised but never get. Either I'm on the team and occasionally get the ball, or either I'm not. I will leave that up to you all as your choice. Any questions?
If I can respond, Mr. Chairman. I guess I would like to say on vehicles, the county did do I think $1 million worth of vehicles a couple years back. We took your maintenance of vehicles and bought a number. I can't remember if there was 50 or 60 vehicles, so I just wanted to clarify that point. I also wanted to say as well, the items in the county's capital improvement program that this board has approved year to year, the things that were identified and went over on January 23rd were the same items that were there last year to be projected for, to be purchased for 2021. In terms of, the sheriff did ask me for some information about the Fed bed revenues going back to 1997. I've been in contact with her since last Wednesday. We're trying to set a time up to meet. She hasn't been able to meet yet. I do want to say that looking at the revenues going back, well, let's look at the total cost of operating the detention center. If you go back to 1997 to present, we've spent about $242 million to operate the Pitt County Detention Center. Divide that by 23, you get an annual cost. The Fed bed revenue during that same period of time has brought in about $40,100,000. That's below the total projection amount. We're about $500,000 below the total budgeted amount that we would bring in that same period of time. In those 23 years, we had 12 years in which the Fed bed projected revenue didn't even hit the mark. It was in the negative. Also, with this policy that you as a board have created for the CIP and for these Fed bed dollars that go beyond what was budgeted, the idea is to use those for deferred maintenance items for the detention center, and if there's any extra dollars, anything else the sheriff would like, and that's up to this board. It's up to the sheriff to make a recommendation, this board then to approve it. The sheriff is right, the detention center is the responsibility of the general fund of county government. Again, that general fund has paid $242 million in costs, whether debt service, whether salaries, whether utilities, whether food, commissary, and so forth. And this stream of revenue has really been just a very small portion that's offset it. If, in another perspective of this, I appreciate all the hard work of the detention center employees. I cannot imagine working in that environment. They're very dedicated, and I thank them for their service. But you can also look at it from the perspective that if we didn't have Fed beds, maybe we should shut down another block and shutter those employees until the local population increases. So the Fed beds inmates have actually helped keep our people employed during this period of time as well. And E block it will be available to be opened when the local population or any other purpose this board deems necessary to use it for. So I just wanted to make those clarifications. I had been wanting to share this with the sheriff, and there's some additional information I think she wanted to, and we'll try to get that to you. But again, I had hoped to share this before this meeting today, but that's kind of my response.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know that in previous years, when I have served as chair and have been in on meetings, it's important, I think, to understand that any of this money that we have gotten as a county, the county commissioners have said it goes back into needs for the jail or that area, and such as air conditioners, I don't know what they call them, cooler systems or whatever, and there've been some other things too, so.
It
that's
is not
just
the responsibility of the sheriff
But
to take care of that building.
and that's why we use the money that we're getting as a county, and I'm not arguing one way or the other.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying that I just want the general public to know that we're not taking that money and using it on something else. As far as the commissioners are concerned, it goes back.
Well, we
with
don't
the
know
jail.
what we're using that money on. I've asked for an accounting for the $40 million that would show us if even that money came back to us in any shape, form, or fashion. It certainly isn't coming back in the need for cars. It certainly isn't coming back in the need for things that we need outside of what we're given during the year.
Sheriff, I have the information and have been willing to meet with you and go over it since last Wednesday.
I got a message from you, I believe, on Thursday, but that's neither here or there. I was unavailable. I have a calendar that I usually have to attend to, but I would still appreciate that information just to see what comes back to us. My whole point in being here was when I came here a few months ago and asked for the overage money, and it was put into a sheriff's capital improvement budget to be able to use for items outside of what you all give us. I have 3 vans at the detention center with over 250,000 miles on them. And those are vans that we transport the federal people with. The same federal people that's bringing in these millions of dollars. I got enough money last budget to get 1 van, and I still got 3 with 250,000 plus miles on them. I'm just not, I should be at a 20 a year at minimum, and getting cars just to keep up with our fleet. And so then I try to find other innovative ways to get extra vehicles through that overage money. And now I'm being told that that money should be used to fix a building that these things should have been done with the $40 million over 20 years. It was the HVAC that's still not repaired. There are generators that have not been replaced, and we've had $40 million.
These funds are used to pay salaries of your personnel in that building, Sheriff, as well as debt service on that building.
We're going to have employees, period, whether we have this money in or not. And it is my understanding that there were no extra additional detention officers that were given when we took on the federal inmates. So I'm not clear on how getting rid of 30 inmates, federal inmates, is going to give the county the ability to reduce our staff when our staff is doing more with less as it stands.
Any other comment? Tom, I'm sorry. I saw him.
Scott, how much do we give to the sheriff's department every year? What was it last year?
Brian, can you help me?
Brian, ballpark it, close.
Right around 31 million.
Okay, and what does that cover?
That covers the sheriff's operations detention center, and then within the detention center, you have several units. You have your medical, you have your jail coordinator. So pretty much it covers all of the areas that you would think of underneath the umbrella of the sheriff's office.
Okay, and if this money is not redirected, if that's a proper word, for the Fed bid, then how does that affect that in any way, shape, or form? Does that mean that we will have to ante up more money for the sheriff's department to cover things?
Well, in the current budget, you have roughly $1 million that you budgeted for this revenue to come in at. If we were not to have this revenue stream, then to answer your question correct, you would have to come up with $1 million either from additional revenue or a reduction in expenses.
So a penny, almost a penny.
Probably 0.8 of a penny, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It seems like, just listening, that Sheriff, you and Scott, and maybe Bryant, maybe I thought I heard Scott said he was trying to get a meeting, and it's conflicting with your schedule, and you haven't really had a chance to get together. I would certainly suggest that, Scott, that you and Barnett and Sheriff, if you could make arrangement to get together and work out some of these concerns that the sheriff has, and maybe bring it back to the board as a recommendation as to how we can move forward.
Sure. Sheriff, are you willing to meet?
Yes, we certainly can.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm a visual person, so I like the statistics that she gave, and in addition to that, so I can see something down as it relates to what you're talking about. Documentation.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things when Brian was asked the question by Tom about what the money is used for, I think the money from the county covers everything except, uniforms.
No, the county's money covers everything, and in terms of the revenue that you're talking about, it's based upon budget. So the amount that we set the budget at, anything above that is what we have determined to be excess, but in a true financial sense, because the revenue does not exceed your operations, there is no true excess revenue from a standpoint, from a pure financial. If you were to have someone to come look at the numbers, they would tell you that it does not exist, that we have created that to go along with the budget. And there was a reduction in that budget after the term of the 20-year contract in 2017. And if you look at that reduction, that's what's pretty much created from a calculation standpoint, excess, and that's the money that we've set aside in the reserve that the sheriff, that you guys set up, that the sheriff could make recommendations, and then you would decide if you wanted to move forward with those recommendations to cover those costs.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, ma'am.
She uses vans to pick up, to transport the prisoners, right?
Correct.
And if you get, that mean from anywhere?
Our federal inmates have court dates that we have to, that's a part of our contract. We transport them to the doctor's appointments, to areas, that they need to be at. And so that's a part of our federal contract, that we do that transportation. And they actually, if I'm not mistaken, Major Phillips, they actually have a portion of that contract that pays us so much per the new contract that pays us for that transportation. And we don't even we have 3 vehicles, that's 250,000 miles over. We may not at some point be able to satisfy even that part of the contract if our vans continue to break.
What if they break down between here and there?
Then we're gonna have to pay for it out of our budget. We do have a budget line that's for repairs, but we're gonna expend that because we're, 250,000 miles, you've gotta expect that we're gonna have a lot of repairs versus just getting some new vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with the chairman that the three of you all sit down and talk about this and look at the numbers and then come to some kind of solution to bring back to us.
Well, and it's just the only reason that I'm here is that simply because the new sheriff CIP budget line that was created for overage money, it was my understanding I'd be able to use that money to supplement some of the things that we did not get. Now, we have an amount of money that we made over this year. Again, my intent was to purchase extra vehicles and drones, and then it's now my understanding that there's some conversation about that money being used to do repairs at the detention center.
But I think also, did we not say that it would come back for a recommendation from this board?
Right. It was my understanding that I would bring it before you all, and you all would then approve or not approve it.
Not approve.
Mhm.
So that's the question. Whatever's decided with this, it will be, worked out, and we may approve what you want, or we may not approve what you want.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but it was the sheriff's capital improvement budget, not the county manager's capital improvement budget line. So if the county manager, I'm not understanding how he comes to, or proposes how to use that money when it was the sheriff's capital improvement budget line. So I don't understand how the county manager would have been coming, or should have the ability to come before you all to spend that money.
I have another question.
I'm sorry, Chris?
Thank you. I think part of the difficulty, Sheriff, is that, we're all up here listening to you, and this has been an item added to the agenda. I think, at least for me, I still have some confusion as to exactly what the disagreement is about the funds. If we've even had a request presented to you about this kind of artificial excess that we created that you can draw from in the event that there is an overage in the budget. There's just a lot of loose ends here, and I feel like the risk of us talking in circles and around each other and not really even getting to the root of the problem without going on the chairman's suggestion. I think we just kind of go down rabbit holes we don't need to go down. So I would be with Ann and Chairman McLawhorn that because of that, for that reason, that we really need to circle the wagon to see what the issues are before we even have this discussion, if that makes sense.
Well, we need doctors.
Because I don't think it's gonna settle here at this meeting.
No, and Mr. Chairman, the other thing that I'd like to, if there's some easy way of doing this, is looking back, even say over the past 10 years or whenever we started, what has been done with that money as far as the jail itself is concerned and the sheriff's department. Is that possible, Scott?
Yeah.
How it's been used? Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think Scott has a.
So we'll set up a meeting for Brian and I to meet with the sheriff and discuss this. I do want to say regarding the capital improvement plan workshop that was on January 23rd, at the previous department head meeting, I did invite any and all department heads who had any items on that agenda or part of that capital improvement plan to come and attend, so if they needed to speak for their project. So any department head or the elected sheriff could have came to the meeting and have been heard by the board, by you.
Sheriff prioritizes their own calendar.
Let's move on.
I'm sorry, sir. What was your comment?
Sir?
I didn't hear your comment. I didn't hear.
No, I said that my calendar is prioritized, and yes, I did have an event, an invite to come to that, but I prioritized my calendar, and I had something else at that time that I could not be here.
Thank you. Well, I think in listening to all of the comments, the agreeable remedy for this is for you and Scott and the finance manager to get together and see can we work this out, and a recommendation will be brought back to the commission, and then we'll move forward.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman,
much.
will there be documentations?
That's right. That's right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Items for decision, moving on to Janice Gallagher and James Rose at this time.
This one been a long time coming. Woodmore.
Mr. Chairman, we're bringing back before you today pretty much process to close out the Woodmore Farm Subdivision Street Improvement Project. Some of you may not have been on the board when we first started this. There was a resolution adopted back in June of 2018 that pretty much set the stage for moving forward. At that point in time, the property owners, at least 75% of the folks that own 75% of the road frontage within the subdivision, petitioned the county to assist with their road improvement projects. So once that resolution was adopted, our county engineering office helped select a contractor to get the work done. That took a ways. We've now been through an elaborate process to get the roads taken over by NCDOT. That was the overall goal. We wanted to ensure that the roads, once they were brought up to standard, that they would be maintained in perpetuity by NCDOT. That took place last December. They're formally part of the state maintenance system now. So, with the closeout of the contract for the improvements of the road, those costs have been tallied. That's on the screen before you. You also have information in your package today. We have 51 property owners that have benefited from this project. If you do the quick division, this is about $10,680 per person over the life of this particular assessment. What we have agreed is there be a 10-year payoff. So the annual assessment would be $1,062.48 per property owner there. Just to give you an idea of what the area we're dealing with, this is just off, again, Woodmore Farm subdivision, just off Highway 43 South near D.H. Conley High School. Yes, the map looks a little strange because Wesley Lane that rolls in here was actually already a state-maintained road. These other roads, Saddle Way, Trails End, Trotter's Way, Mayor's Way, were new subdivision streets as well as the extension of Wesley Lane. All those were part of the new subdivision. Those were not publicly maintained until just recently. So the 51 property owners in the shaded gray area are the ones that are subject to the assessment. And just some before and after shots, here you can see alligator cracking along the roadway, some also areas where potholes had been filled in. The road was at a stage that it was really going to deteriorate very quickly. There was also major areas that needed improvements along the roadside ditches because of sediment and also vegetation growing in there. So this is part of the construction process as it was moving along. You can see the contractor had to go through and actually shave off areas along the side of the shoulders so water could effectively move off the roadbed. And this is kind of your end result, brand new roadway, and now it's time to move forward with the actual assessment process. So the next step in this process is to move forward with the preliminary assessment roll resolution that's in your package today, and also set forth the next public hearing date to finalize that assessment roll. And that roll is part of what Sam will use in getting that assessment put in place for the next tax year. So with that, Mr. Chairman, these are the two actions we're recommending for today.
Thank you, James. What's the pleasure of the board?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
If you look at parcel 09478, it's actually, it appears to be two parcels that straddles Saddleway. And if you were to look at the road frontage on that, as opposed to one of the other ones down the bottom right, say 52-272, this is just an equal burden on every person or the property regardless of the road frontage.
That is correct.
Was that agreed to by the people? I remember, maybe not everything, but I thought that there was going to be proportional to the road.
No, it was modeled after the Woodmore subdivision, the adjacent subdivision. It is per lot, not based off the actual road footage.
And if I could add to that, so the general statute allows us to do it by lot or allows us to do it by road frontage or other various methods. The Board of Commissioners, before we embarked upon this process, established a policy, and within that policy, it states that it will be divided per lot as the choice. You have another opportunity to consider whether you want to do it per lot. At the time we adopted the preliminary assessment resolution. And that was at the beginning of this project, and we had a public hearing. And one of the elements in that resolution that was presented at the time was that it would be divided by lot. And we had a public hearing and notified everyone who had an opportunity to speak about it at that time. And then the board did a final assessment resolution, and that's where that was confirmed.
Okay.
So a good question in future projects, if you wanted to modify that, I would say you could, but in this project, that methodology was established when you confirmed the assessment role.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Her answer was a lot better than mine.
Are you sure?
Do you want a motion?
Yes,
Mr.
I'll motion.
James, I do have one question. Somebody sent me a message just this morning about the drainage and the ditch and everything. And it's my understanding from Janice that Soil and Water has gone out there to check on this. I guess this is since the road has been done. Can you just touch on that for me?
Yes, and again, DOT took over the roadways, including the roadside
Okay.
ditches, back in December. So any maintenance work is the responsibility of DOT now. What we have done, there was a problem at one of the intersections. We have sent Soil and Water staff out there to take a look at it. It does hold a bit of water. It's the wet time of the year. Not all these roadside ditches are going to be water-free within a short period of time. So at this point in time, the Department of Transportation is satisfied with it, and that's the biggest thing that we have to go off of. But we are continually working with the property owner there.
Okay, thank you.
In looking at this same map, if you notice from the highway to the center of the ditch drain, and then the growth that's going up the backside, whose responsibility of that? Because I look like I see some trees growing right there that may get loose in the roots.
That's kind of how it is. That's how it is now. So some of these, parts of yards, typically the property owners are going to actually maintain that as part of their front yard. Some of these other
That's
more
the part
open
right there.
areas,
Yeah, on that side where there aren't
ultimately,
people.
that's in the road right-of-way, so that is a DOT maintenance area.
That's the part that always I have questions about, where there's not a house and it's not maintained. The trees grow and you see them falling.
DOT.
If it's within the right-of-way, just off the back slope of the ditch, that is typically DOT's responsibility.
I just want you to know the part that I'm talking about when I be talking about the right-of-way.
Okay, I move that we accept the two recommendations.
Second it.
Okay, has been moved and properly seconded. We accept the two recommendations. Let it be known by your vote, please. It's passed. Thank you very much. Reappointments to the Animal Service Advisory Board, Scott.
Yes, you have 3 reappointments to the Animal Service Advisory Board. You have Jack Brock, Allison Dale, and Matthew Goddard. And they're asking for an exception to your policy for Matthew Goddard in terms of number of terms. But they're recommending reappointment all 3.
I second it.
Okay, let's vote, please. Thank you. It has been suggested that we go into closed session. Madam Attorney.
Yes, it has been suggested that this board go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A to discuss a matter protected by the attorney-client privilege and also to preserve confidential information to review your closed session minutes. You'll just need a motion to go in.
Motion to go.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we go into closed session. Let it be known by your vote, please. Okay, we're now back into open session. Commissioner White, you have,
Yes, sir, I do. I would like to make a motion to approve the closed session minutes from January 13th.
I second it.
has been moved and properly second. Let's vote, please. Thank you. Commissioner comments. We'll start with Commissioner White.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Properly moved and second. All in favor, let it be known by your vote. You're down, stand and adjourn.
Mike, you want to stay?